Hello, friends. Robert Bevan here, author of the Caverns and Creatures series of comedy, fantasy novels, and short stories. With me is Sam West, and today we'll be talking about the spell Wrathful Smite.
Rob.
Yeah, this
What
one
sounds like.
sounds like it should be awesome, but we all know you're not a huge fan of Smite spells. And is this an exception?
No,
Oh,
this is not an exception. This is, I think, a gold star for why the Smite spells are bad. I think this is like right down the middle. This is why they are normally very low rated on my opinions. Because it has all the problems that a Smite spell has.
and usually those problems are just not being a huge improvement on the Smite feature.
Yeah, oftentimes actively worse. This time, not strictly worse, but close enough that you're like, yeah, I don't know why I'd ever cast this.
All right, well, before we get into it, what does Wrathful Smite do?
So like all the other Smite spells that are not the Smite feature, you get a bonus action to cast it. It takes your concentration while you cast it. So you bonus action this. You can't be concentrating on anything else because it'll break that concentration, all that fun stuff. And then the next time you would hit with a melee weapon during this spell's duration, which is a minute, which is almost always the turn you use it. You do a bonus 1d6 psychic damage, which is a lot less than 2d8, which is what regular Smite does. Additionally, the creature that gets hit makes a wisdom saving throw, and if it fails, it's frightened until the spell ends. So this is something that you then would conceivably want to maintain concentration on. As an action, a creature can make a wisdom check to not be frightened of you anymore. And for reference, all the frightened condition does is it imposes disadvantage on attack rolls and ability checks while I can see the source of the fear, and it can't move closer to the fear. Notably, that doesn't really matter if the creature is like already engaged with you. The last line of text. What really matters is it imposes disadvantage on a bunch of stuff, right? So like in a vacuum, I think it may be pretty apparent, like, oh, frightened condition's good. This is on an attack roll. Why is this bad, right?
Well, let me take a crack at it.
Go for it.
All right, first of all, like with other Smite spells we've covered in the past, this only targets one creature. The concentration of a minute doesn't mean you can keep making more frightened creatures. It's your
Correct.
next hit, which I don't like.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to maintain concentration. There's that burden, but then they can just saving throw their way out of it.
Also true. Yeah, all of that is giant compounding reasons.
It does cost them an action to attempt that, right?
Yeah, or more likely, you get hit enough times, 2 or 3, that you drop concentration and they aren't affected at all anymore. And they make an attack roll with disadvantage, 2 attack rolls with disadvantage. Wrathful Smite, like you mentioned, this is a one-time use. It's only doing a bonus d6 damage. I have a great pro tip for everyone out there. If the creature is dead, it can't attack you. So doing a bonus d8 plus a upgraded dice from a d6 to d8 with a regular Divine Smite that you don't have to prepare, that doesn't require any concentration nonsense. You can be concentrating on Divine Favor while you're doing the other smites. You can be concentrating on Protection from Good and Evil while you're doing the other smite. You can't have any of that while you're Wrathful Smiting. So that's all opportunity cost, right? Concentration means all the other stuff is offline if you want to be Wrathful Smiting. The upside then, the trade-off that you're getting for less damage, no ability to concentrate on other things, and the concentration not being defensive at all, and it not being good at keeping its own concentration up. Like Protection from Good and Evil, for example, often is really good at defending itself because everything attacking you is going to have a harder time hitting you. You're going to have a better time maintaining concentration for a few rounds of it if you cast it on yourself. Wrathfuls might not. It's just one creature is going to have a slightly worse time hitting you. All the other creatures aren't going to have a hard time hitting you at all. So you're probably dropping concentration on this within a round.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
If that so happens to be before the creature's next turn, even if they fail to save after you hit it, the frightened effect just goes away and there's no condition at all, which is a real bummer.
All right, now what if you're only facing off against one bigger foe, or if your buddies can handle like protecting you from the rest of the enemy party?
I'm going to start by saying, if you're the paladin relying on your buddies to protect you from monsters when your AC is like around 20-ish, I don't think you're doing that's probably not where you're not doing your job right. That's not what you're supposed to be doing as the paladin in the group. Normally, you're the one whose objective is to get attacked because you're pretty good at taking damage and being attacked, right? But to the point of one big bad monster, that is where Wrathful Smite's like, okay, if there's a one single enemy entity that's particularly scary, Wrathful Smite means it will have a bad time attacking me. And notably, it does give it a bad time attacking anyone as long as it can see you. So it can be a supportive feature in that case. This is a smite that, in one very niche scenario, which is that you're fighting exactly one creature. And the reason I call that scenario niche is because I think DMs quickly learned that single monster encounters almost always just die to a saber die. And then after they've run a couple of them, they're like, oh, Hideous Laughter ended this encounter before it started, or oh, Hold Person ended this encounter before it started. They'll start packing monsters around a big bad, so there'll be a central fight figure and other add-ons typically. That's why I consider the circumstances to be rather rare. That's why it's niche. In that niche moment, though, in the time you are fighting against just the lone hill giant, the low fire giant, the single set piece monster, yes, fearing it can be very good. Oftentimes, those creatures are going to have other options outside of strictly making attack rolls. That isn't necessarily always true, though. And if you can ever actually get something frightened with Wrathful Smite and have it be meaningfully disabled for a while, it's pretty good. So that's something that has Wrathful Smite's favor. It against very small groups, against singles and doubles, Wrathful Smite is a spell that's like, should it pass the save that I'm not investing a lot of resources into because you really want a high con, you really want a high strength, sometimes you want a high dex. Charisma is like your second or third thought most of the time when you're playing Paladin, so your spell save DC is like an 11, a 12, even in the mid tiers. Oh, pardon, sorry. 13, 14 is like kind of where we're capping out. Things are going to be able to consistently pass that more than you'd like. And for the downside of just, I could have killed it instead with more damage, I don't see it being all that worth it.
Yeah, I can't argue with you there. I don't know. Anything else we got to cover with Wrathful Smite? It's just such a cool name.
It is such a cool. I honestly think that's my biggest problem with it.
Yeah.
I think there will be groups where you will find the spell is very serviceable. I think those same groups aren't spamming Divine Smite and doing particularly big numbers. They aren't the groups that are like building together characters whose objective is to deal lots of damage, or their objective is to be hyper specifically good at something, which is Paladins are very hyper specifically good at doing a tremendous amount of damage at once. So like, this is something you could conceivably, like a lot of Paladin builds will want to say, I wanted to front load all of my damage at once. You can bonus action Wrathful Smite, hit it, and Divine Smite if you want to go off with a Nova, and then have the thing not have a worse time hitting you back. At the same time, I would just rather Smite again next turn and have the resources to stagger out my damage a little bit more and more often than that. But if you are trying to like big single big bad that you know you're going to go fight against, packing Wrathful Smite as a supplement to your other Divine Smite, again, assuming you don't care about concentrating on anything else, like a protective spell of some nature that you would like to have oftentimes, Wrathful Smite can fit under your sheet. This isn't uncastably bad, but it is, again, it's a clear highlight as to these are the problems with the Smite spells. It has a fine enough effect, but it's not so much better than Divine Smite that you're really consistently going to be like, yeah, I would want that more often. And it has concentration issues that can just fall off and be useless in a lot of encounters.
One more scenario.
Hit me with it.
A party, all Paladins,
Oh,
all using Wrathful Smite at the same time.
that's a lot of frightened enemies. That seems pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Or one enemy afraid of lots of different enemies, which is cute. Like if you have 6 Paladins that all pack Wrathful Smite, a creature can be feared by 6 different targets, which means if it ever wants to not be frightened for the rest of its life, it has to pass 6 subsequent saves, assuming it like take its action to spend saves on this thing. It's cute. It's just gonna attack you with disadvantage. It's not gonna do that ever. Like I think if you're casting a spell, you shouldn't expect creatures to ever waste actions trying to break the DC. They'll just attack you instead.
That's fine. Let them
Yeah.
attack. Like you said, I've got a big armor class.
Yeah.
You know, this what you were saying before. It does kind of, in the right scenario, it does kind of defend itself.
Yes, against specifically one creature, it defends itself. Against anything larger than that, you're just like, oh, that one thing has a worse time hitting me. Everything else doesn't give a shit, though. Anything else can just be like, yeah, I'll put him in a save and make him drop the concentration because he failed a DC 10 con set check. Like, it's going to happen more often than you think you'd like.
All right, well, that was Wrathful Smite, I suppose. You got a score for this one?
This is gonna be a comfortable 2 out of 5. I think this is a spell that there will be the niche scenario where you're like, yeah, I actually would like to prepare Wrathful Smite for this. I think 99% of the rest of the time, if you're a paladin, you don't need it. Just you have regular Divine Smite. Even in the encounters where it is really good, regular Divine Smite isn't that much worse. In fact, I would say regular Divine Smite's probably, because it just does more damage, going to end the encounter faster and be on average about as good against the one big monster. So it's a side grade in those big fights.
Yeah, I'm with you on this one. 2 sounds about right. It's enough has to go right for it to be really awesome, and I don't think that's going to happen.
Can you imagine
except with the party of paladins, that would be wicked cool.
Can you imagine the disappointment of like, I cast Wrathful Smite and do a d6 bonus damage?
Yeah.
Like, ugh. No, you need something else out of it for that to be worth it.
All right, another disappointing Smite spell. All right, well, that was it. That was Wrathful Smite. Thank you, Sam, and thank you, everyone, for joining us. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching. If you found this helpful, informative, or entertaining, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button below. You needn't smash it. A gentle tap will suffice. If you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to the channel. And make sure you check out the links in the description, where you'll find my Caverns and Creatures series of comedy fantasy novels, Sam's full review of the spell, and other fun things.